Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. It's been quite a while since I've made a little video, but this one I thought I would do because this is a follow-up to a video I put out in 2023 where I had made templates for BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover by Spitfire Audio, and I made them for Cubase, FL Studio, Ableton Live and Pro Tools. And I also said that you could contact me and request one of these templates and I would happily deliver it to you. And you know what? A lot of you have. Even up until a couple of weeks ago, someone asked me for the Cubase template. And it's been absolutely fantastic having some correspondence with some of you guys. Some of you have even got back to me letting me know how you've got on with the template and whether it's working for you. It's been really, really good. So thank you so much for watching the video. But some of you have also asked if I have templates for Reaper, Studio One, that's come up a number of times, and Logic. But unfortunately, I don't have these templates. And that's the point of this video. I'm going to show you how I made the template in Cubase, and you should be able to follow along quite easily, because there's only a few things you need to know how to do in your DAW in order to make it. And those things are how to load up an instance, or preferably multiple instances, of BBC Discover, how to create group tracks and route channels to these groups, and how to create folder tracks to keep your template nice and organised. So if you do know how to do all these things in your DAW, let's jump into Cubase and get started. Okay, so the first thing we need to know is how many instances of BBC Discover that we need, and that number is 48. So I'm going to select Add Instrument Track, and BBC is already selected, and down here where it says Count, I'm going to type in that little box 48, and then we'll click OK or Add Track and just give Cubase a little minute to think, and there we go, 48 wonderful tracks. Now what I'm going to start off with is colouring all our tracks, and straight away as soon as you colour all your tracks it already starts to look like it's very organised. It starts to begin to look like a template. So we're going to start off with the piano. Now I will say the piano in this, it's not a great sounding piano. I would usually replace this with another one, but it is always useful to have a piano in your template because it's good for sketching out ideas and when in the writing process, and then you can copy the MIDI and put it into whatever track you want, whether it's violin, cello, any of the brass instruments, whatever. So for the Cubase users, there is a couple of different ways for colouring your tracks. First one is, see over here in this little section, this little grey area, if you hold Shift and use your mouse wheel, and you can scroll through all the different colours. And I'm going to do that for this one because we only need to colour one of these tracks, and we're going to colour it purple because it's purple in the plugin, and it's good to keep everything nice and coordinated with the plugin to keep things organised. Another way of doing it is to go up to the Project tab and colorise selected tracks, and that brings up the little colour palette and you can just select whatever one you want. There's a shortcut for this. If you hold Shift, Alt and press C, that also brings up the colour palette. But we need to colour multiple tracks for the string section, so in order to do that, a much quicker way is to select the first track, hold Shift and count down to 19 tracks, okay? And that's going to cover the entire string section. And if you click on that while holding Shift, it highlights all the tracks in between. So then we hold Shift, Alt and press C. That brings up the colour palette. Select green. Now all the tracks have coloured. For the next set of instruments, I'm going to cover the brass section. You can do woodwind, even if you want to start with the brass section or the woodwinds. It really depends. It's up to yourself, really, which way you want to have your template set out. But I tend to go strings, brass, woodwind, and then percussion. For the brass section, we need 10 tracks to cover the whole section. So select your first one, count down 10 tracks, hold Shift, click on it, highlights them all. Then we'll use a little shortcut again, Control, Alt, and C. And these are going to be red. Done. And then woodwind section, that's the same number of tracks, we need 10. So click on your first one, count down 10 instruments, hold Shift, click on it again, and then Shift, Alt, C. And these are going to be blue. That's sorted. And then the remainder of the tracks will cover the percussion section, the harp, timpani, untuned percussion, things like that. Click on the first one, hold Shift, then Shift, Alt, C. And these are going to be yellow. And already, as you can see, this starts to look structured a bit more. Even just by colouring your tracks, it looks a bit more organised. So now we get to the really boring part. So I'm going to fast forward through a lot of this, and that's just naming all the tracks. So double click on that. That first one's going to be piano. And then I'll go through the first set of instruments for the string section, which is violin 1. Right, so violin 1, and it's going to be long. Let me just open up the plugin to show you. See, we've got violin 1 here, and each one of them has got long, spiccato, pizzicato, tremolo, and that is exactly the same for violin 2, viola, cello, but the bass only has 3. The tremolo is missing from the bass. I don't know why, it just is. So name all your tracks the same way. So that will be violin 1 spiccato. I'm just going to put spic for short, and the next one will be violin 1 pizzicato, but pizz for short, and the fourth one, will be violin 1 tremolo. We'll put trem for short. Then all you need to do is go through all the other instruments and name them the same thing, except the next track obviously will be violin 2. You'll have a long, a spiccato, pizzicato, tremolo. Same with the viola, same with the cello, except when you get to the bass, you're just missing a tremolo articulation because it doesn't have one. So I'm going to go ahead and do all that. I'm going to fast forward through this because it's very boring just watching someone type, just all the admin work. So pause the video and you go do the same thing. So that's that done. As you can see, we've got violin 1 long, a spic, a pizz, a trem, and the same for violin 2, for viola, cello, and the bass, except bass doesn't have a tremolo. So that's all that sorted out. Now next we're going to do the brass section. As you can see from the string section, it's going from the highest register instruments to the lowest, but it's going in a clockwise motion around the plugin itself. And I kind of like to follow that, so I usually start the brass section by putting the French horns in, even though it's not the highest register, but it's, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit OCD for me. It's still going in a sort of clockwise motion from left to right. So that's just how I like to start it, but it's up to you which way you want to do. But if you look on all the brass instruments, when you click on it, there's just 2 articulations. So we've got a long and a statichismo, which is like a short note. So just name your tracks that. So we'll go horns, long, and then the next one will be horns, statichismo, or stack for short, or even just short, because that's what it is, it's a short note. So I'm going to do horns, stack. And then, as I say, I like to work clockwise, so I'm going to do the trumpet, the trombone, and bass trombone, and then the tuba. And it's exactly the same articulations for each one. So pause the video, I'm going to fast forward through all this bit. Okay, so brass section's done. Next we're going to go into the woodwinds. Name all these the exact same way as the brass section, because it's just the same. 5 instruments with 2 articulations each, and they're the exact same as the brass, long and stack. So I'm going to name these. Pause the video, you go do that as well. Okay, so woodwinds done. We've got for the piccolo a long and a stack, flute long stack, oboe long stack, clarinet long stack, bassoon long stack. Sorted. Now the remainder of the instruments is for the percussion section, and these don't have any articulations, they're just individual instruments. So the first one will be a harp, then we've got a celeste, then we'll have timpanis, untuned percussion, and then the 4 tuned percussion instruments: tubular bells, marimba, xylophone, glockenspiel. So let's go name all them. Right, sorted. Now it's time to start assigning instruments to these tracks. And it's so simple to do this. You just open up the instrument, click on the track, this case piano, open up the instrument and select piano. Then go to violin 1, long, click on the instrument. Now this is already the default instrument when you open up BBC Discover. It's already on violin 1 long, so we can just leave that alone. Then we open up violin 1 spiccato, click on violin 1, click spiccato, and then close it down. Then violin 1 pizz, same again, click on violin 1, select pizz, and then obviously the tremolo, do the same thing, violin 1 and then select tremolo. And then all you need to do is go through every instrument and assign it to the track. So the next one will be violin 2 long, select violin 2, make sure long selected, and so on and so forth all the way through. Right, so that's all our instruments labelled, coloured and assigned. So when you open up the plugin, you shouldn't actually have to ever open this plugin up again. And let's just double check everything just to make sure. Piano, we've got a piano, violin, yep, spiccato, violin, violin's pits, violin 2, then viola, then we're on to the cellos. Oh, that sounds very similar to the viola, doesn't it? I might have made a little mistake there. Right, that's on viola spiccato. See, this is why you should always check. So, cello. Yeah, that was wrong. There you go. Always check. And just make sure. Let me just go through it into cello long just to make sure that is. No, it's selected cello long, that's fine. And make sure the pizzicato one is the same. No, see, that's on violin 1. There, I've messed that up. There you go, that's much better. Right, I went through that quite quick. Yeah, see, that's still on violin 1, which should be cello, tremolo. Yep, right. Okay, that's us. On to the bass. That is definitely on bass long. Bass pick. Yep, bass picks. Awesome. Okay, now double check the horns. I'm going to double check these again actually, because it's definitely on bass trombone. It's because the trombone and the bass trombone do share a similar register. So just always double check. And tuba. Yep. And I've already went through and checked these, but I'm going to do it again just to make sure. Stop doing that. Keep hitting the wrong button. Or clicking on the wrong area rather. Yep, okay. Got a harp, got a celeste, got a timpani, loads of cool percussion sounds, tubular bells, marimba, xylophone, glockenspiel. Right, okay, that's it. Sorted. All instrument tracks. Now, as a template, even if for beginner, you could just leave it at this as a beginner template if you want. But we are going to move on to group tracks and folder tracks next. So, how many group tracks do we need? Essentially, it really depends on yourself, I suppose, your personal preference. But I tend to have one per instrument. So, a group track for the violin 1, one for violin 2, viola, cello, bass, blah, blah, blah. Except for all the percussion instruments, because the reason I have a group track is because each one of these has different articulations. And when it comes to the mixing stage, I mean, your composition could be using violin long notes, and there might be some spiccato notes along there. There's a little ostinato or something. So it's good to have a little bit more control. But with the percussion section, the harp, celeste, timpani, blah blah blah, they are just they're all individual instruments. They don't have articulations, so I don't really put a group track with them. So we're going to select add group track. And we need 15. 1, 5. And add tracks. And there we go, we've got them all. Now, again, it's colour coding and naming again. I know this isn't very exciting stuff. It's admin work, essentially. But we're going to need 5 green, 5 blue, and 5 red. So we'll do that little thing we did before. We'll hold shift. We'll click on the first track, sorry. We'll hold shift and we'll count down 5. And we will press Shift, Alt, C, and this is going to be our string section, so they're going to be green. And then select another one and count down another 5, hold Shift, and the colour palette's still there, so that's good. Colour them red for the brass section, and again, Shift, click, Shift, Alt, C. We don't need to press that because it's already there, but just as a wee reminder for shortcuts. So, first one, violin 1, second one, violin 2, and then you're going to do viola, then cello, bass, and then do all your brass section, your horns, trumpet, trombone, bass trombone, tuba, and obviously when you get to the woodwind section, it's going to be piccolo, flute, clarinet, no, oboe, clarinet, then bassoon. Okay, that's our group tracks coloured and named. So now we need to just organise these a wee bit more. So we want our violin group to go right above all our violin 1 instruments. So just drag it, click and drag, and just put it up the top between violin 1 and piano. And then do the same thing for violin 2. In fact, you know what, might be a quicker way of doing this. If I just select, clicked on the first one, hold shift and click on where it says bass and just drag all of these up to close so that it's in the string section. It just makes it easier to move things about. That's all our groups. You could actually leave all your group tracks there at the top. But I just personally prefer to have them with each individual instrument. So again, we'll click on, for the brass section, click on the first one, hold shift and just bring it up to the brass section, and we'll organise it all in a wee moment. And the same again with our woodwinds. Now we go and we'll move violin 2 to just above violin 2 long, and viola, again just above viola long, cello, same thing, and our bass group just above bass long. And just do the same thing with brass instruments, and then do the exact same thing with all your woodwind section. So now it's time to route all of our channels to these groups. So for the violin 1, we're going to selected violin 1 long. I'm going to hold shift, click on violin 1 trem, and then a very, very quick way of doing this is to hold shift alt and then click on one of them where it says stereo out, and all your groups, there'll be a list of all your groups here, and just click again, hold shift and alt, click violin 1 group, and now all of them have been selected. They've all been routed to that channel. And let's just double check. Bring that back over. I'm going to click on just violin 1 long, and that should be coming through the group channel as well when I play a key. Yep. Violin 1 spick is also coming through. Pits. Yep. Tremolo. Yep. And you can also see up here where it did say stereo out, it says violin 1 group. So that's exactly where everything is. Now all we need to do is the exact same for violin 2. Again, we'll hold shift and then again hold shift, alt, and click on one of the tracks where it says stereo out, and then select violin 2 group. Now all have been assigned, and now we just need to do exactly the same thing for each of the other instruments. Don't click on the group track itself, just the instruments. So viola long, hold shift, click on viola trem, hold shift and alt, click on where it says stereo out, and select that. Easy peasy. And just keep doing the same thing all along for all the other instruments and groups. Okay, that's all of our channels routed. Now, I know obviously I'm doing this in Cubase. If you're using Cubase, you should be able to follow along very easily. So I'm unsure slightly how to do this if you're using things like Reaper, Studio One, or Logic, but the principle of it is the same. So the next thing we need to do is create folder tracks. Now, I believe in Logic, as far as I'm aware, please do not quote me on this, that folder tracks are actually called track stacks or stack tracks, but it is essentially the same thing. So what we're going to do is we are going to create, where is it? Folder tracks, where are we? In fact, you know, there's actually a much easier way of doing this. I'm not going to put the piano into it because there's no point, but I'm going to select our violin 1 group track, hold shift, select violin 1 trem, so everything to do with violin. Then we're going to right click and move selected tracks to new folder. There we go, we've now got a folder. And if you click on that little folder icon, they disappear. They all go into that folder. Brilliant. And we're going to do the same thing for our violin 2. Everything to do with violin 2. Right click, move selected tracks to new folder, and now that's got it. And do exactly the same thing for every single instrument. So the viola, and then everything to do with the cello, everything to do with the bass, the horns, the trumpet, blah, 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 the whole thing. Make sure they're all in folders. So again, right click, move tracks, select folder, close it up, and I'm going to fast forward all this stuff. So you pause the video and go ahead and do this just now. Just remember, hold shift and highlight your tracks, right click, move selected tracks to new folder. Okay, so everything is now in a folder. They're all sorted except for the piano, but I'm going to actually show you how to create a folder track on its own, and we'll put the piano in that just as an example. So we right click on this big panel for adding instruments and things, and add folder track, and you would give it a name. I'm just going to call it piano just now, and all we do is click on that piano folder track, drag it up next to the piano, and then we just click and hold on the piano track and drag it into it. And now that's in a folder. And if you look here, everything else is in a folder. Obviously, these aren't named or color-coded, which is what we still need to do. Again, another boring part. So this is going to be, the first one is going to be for violin 1. And we'll do that Shift-Alt-C, and we'll make it green. And just do the same thing for everything else. Okay, so there we have it. That's all our folders done. If we open them all up, the piano's in there. Oh, that's a different colour. Let me change that. I mean, the piano doesn't necessarily need to be in a folder, to be honest. I was just doing it to show you how to create them individually rather than just selecting all tracks and then routing them. So let's close that down. Violin 1, we've got our Violin 1 group, our long, spick, pits, trem. All of those are there. Violin 2, same again. Viola, cello, bass. Then our brass section, we've got our horns, the trumpet, trombone, bass trombone, and the tuba. And same again for our woodwind section. Done. And the percussion section, you don't really need to have them in a folder, to be honest, because they've not got individual articulations. They're just separate instruments. I mean, we could. There's nothing to say that we can't. So you could also have everything in folders to do. In fact, let's just do that just now. So let's create another 5 instrument track. Another 5 folder tracks. Let's do 5. And we'll just add it there, and then we'll call these, just the first one, strings. The next one will be brass, and woodwind, and what am I missing? Just percussion. Percussion. So I don't need 5 at all, I just need 4. So delete that. Tracks. And then all we'd need to do is select, click on Violin 1 folder, hold Shift, click on the bass, and just drag them into the strings. So we'll need to colour that green so it matches up. We'll do that with the brass one, we'll make that red. Our woodwinds will make it blue. So everything matches up nicely. It's the wrong colour shade of blue, isn't it? There it is. And then percussion is going to be yellow. So I mean, it really is up to yourself how you want to do this. Let's just bring all that up to the top. Then we'll click on our horns, hold Shift, click on the bottom one, and then just drag them into the brass folder. Let's move that out of the way. Click on piccolo, hold Shift, then click on bassoon, drag them into the woodwinds, close the folder, and then click on harp, then Shift, click on glockenspiel, and drag them into the percussion. Close the folder. And now look at that. The template is tiny. It really is. It just keeps things nice and organised. I mean, the piano, you don't really need to have one. But just as an example of organisation. So open your strings, you would pick your instrument, let's say we're going to use violin 1 pits, and then you would close that down, close down your string, and then move on to brass. I believe that's a different shade of green on there. Let's just change that back. There it is. See, all your brass instruments are in folders within a folder, and then folders within folders. You could also, if you like, add another 1, 2, 3, 4 group tracks, just one for each section. I'm not going to do that in this, but it's just it keeps things. It's more for when it gets to the mixing stage, so you can balance out levels a little bit more. If the brass section is maybe a little too loud, just bring it down or whatever. You know what I mean. So the final step in this is to export this as a template. Now, most DAWs, I believe, I've had a little look for Studio One and Logic, and I believe there is the option. When you go into File, there's the option that says Save as Template. Don't save as, and then type in BBC Discover Template, because all that's going to do is save it as a project. So if you do that and then you start playing, you compose, and then you export the thing, and then you want to start fresh, if you go into that project file, all your work's still going to be there. So what you want to do is save it as a template. So you click on File, Save as Template, and I've already got a couple here with BBC Discover templates, orchestral templates, a couple of things. So I'm just going to save this as BBC Discover Template 2. Just going to save it like that, and then click OK, and that's it. So what I'm going to do now is close this down. So now we open up Cubase, and it's got all your recent stuff. Now that recent project was this one here, BBC Discover Template Tutorial, but I don't want to select that. I want to go into More, and that is where all your templates will be. See, BBC Discover Template 2. So if I click on that, create, that template we just created should appear. Should appear. Yay! There it is. That is our template, and that means that we can use that whenever we want from scratch. It's not saved as a project. We can then, obviously, once we do some work in this template, then click Save As Project, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you know what I mean. So, thank you very much for watching this. I really hope this has been useful to people who are using different DAWs. As I said, I'll put a link in the description to the previous video where I give a little walkthrough of the previous templates. I have saved this one, so if you do want this one, then get in touch. It's no problem. I'll happily send you this one, BBC Discover Template 2. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, folks, and it's good to be back. I'm going to try to be a bit more active on the channel this year. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.